And we'll start with the consideration of the minutes from our July 12th meeting. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Lau and a second by Pam. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes pass. Item 3 is a review of the disc golf proposal for Meadows Park. And we have several people here tonight who would probably like to speak on this. And we'll start out with Joe, who's going to talk about the proposal. We'll have some comments from the park board, and then we'll open up for discussion in the audience. If you all want to speak, if you keep your comments to within a couple of minutes. If you have one or two representatives that are going to speak at length, and that's fine. We can do it that way too. So, but let's start out with Joe Fight. If you want to talk about the proposal for the disc golf at Hudson Meadows.
Yes, hi, my name is Joe Fight, and I'm proposing the disc golf course for Meadows Park. And it seems like it would be an ideal location for it. At this time, there is really no use of the park, so it's a nice space, but there's really nothing there. It's just an open, unused space, and I think it would be excellent. The size of it is just about right for a 12-hole course. The way we've got it designed, I don't know if you've seen a map, but the way it's designed, it would stay away from the homes to the south. And I think there would be very little disruption, I guess, of your lives or whatever, if you think that is what there might be. I don't really know. I think your children and you yourselves would find it to be an asset because it's so much fun to play. And if you've never played disc golf or seen it played, I certainly would be more than happy to show you how that works out. And in the proposal, which I thought was here but isn't, one of the things I had put forth in the proposal was to meet with any neighbors that would like to meet to show you how it's played, show your children how it's played. It's a great family game. So basically there is very little cost to the city, as I think we had talked about. We have all of the material, and I think it would be very good. I think it would be very popular, and also an asset that you may not have thought about is when there are people playing there at a regular time, when there's people going through that park playing the course, it tends to keep crime down. If there is somebody lurking down there, it's kind of, at this time there's really nobody there. It's an empty space essentially. If anybody was lurking down there or something, when there's regular play, such as a disc golf course, it tends to drive that away.
Can you expand on when you say little cost to the city, what do you mean? What are we talking?
Literally zero. There's no cost to the city.
None. So there's no maintenance going on?
Well, there is maintenance.
Who does that?
That's mowing.
Who does it?
The city.
What's the cost?
Well, as I understand, you can answer that one better. I assume there's a staff that are being paid hourly. So
well, I appreciate the questions. Let's get through the proposal first, and we can ask questions in a little bit. So,
but yeah, I think it's one of those things where I think because it's maybe unknown to you, it may seem more threatening or something. I don't really know, but it really is an excellent game. I've been playing it for 35 years. There are courses all over the world, 3,000 disc golf courses. There's quite a few that are even close to here. There's one in River Falls, there's one in Somerset, and one in Oak Park Heights. And then in the Twin Cities metro area, there's about 20 disc golf courses. And so it's not an unusual thing. It's actually a very popular pastime, and it's growing very fast. But I'd be happy to answer any questions people have. Or
Joe, do you want to explain why you're coming to the city of Hudson for a disc golf course area? Tell us about how you're going to use the course. Is there going to be leagues? Is there going to be open play?
Yeah, it'll be mainly open play. It's free to play, and we're going to be holding leagues. A league, probably one night a week, And other than that, it'll just be open. And like any of the parks in Hudson, they'll have the regular hours, which I think are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., I believe. And people typically are playing from about 12 noon till about 7 or 8 at night, I would say. It's kind of the typical times that most people are playing. Some would be in morning, I suppose. But typically it's in the afternoon and early evening. It attracts a wide variety of people. Myself, I'm 61 years old. I'm a little on the high end, but there are a lot of seniors that play it, and actually a lot of children that play it. It tends to appeal to a wide spectrum. And you don't have to be a super athlete in order to play. Really, you just have to be able to throw a disc and walk, essentially. It's very good exercise for people. I mean, right now, I mean, we're all trying to think of how can we get our children out to get a little more exercise, get them away from the screens, the screen time. This is a perfect way to get out and have some fun and enjoy the outdoors. And it's a very sociable game. Typically, people are playing in groups of 2 or 3, sometimes a foursome. Very sociable, very informal. It's not like regular golf in the sense that there's no carts to rent. The equipment is very inexpensive. A disc costs about $10 to $15. It's a lot of fun, and I don't think it's going to disrupt for those of you that are living on that south edge, I don't think it'll disrupt life at all, honestly. It's a fairly quiet sport, and it's just people playing, going through there. And it's going to be staying away from private property, of course, the way the course is designed. So.
Okay, is there any questions amongst the park board members for Joe at this time? None? Okay, Joe, do you want to sit down?
Sure. In
this chair right over here, and then we'll have members from the audience get up, and whoever wants to speak, please step up the microphone, give your name and address, and if you have questions for the park board and or Mr. Fight, that'd be fine.
Excuse me. My name is Mike Peterson. I live at 43 Canary Way, and I've been living there since 2007. I'm married and retired, and the site that we picked out there was the ideal site, and that is why we moved to Hudson Meadows, because of the view. And we actually built a home that has lakefront type windows that oversee it too, so to make sure we would get the full view of it. And it was totally virgin territory when we first looked at it, and then things happened to it. We were assured that by our realtor that it would always be undeveloped, and that the realtor worked for Ryan Realty, and we paid a premium for the lots, as did the rest of the people here that live directly on the meadow. In the summer 2008, though, I had a big surprise. In the afternoon, I came home, and bulldozers were going through the bottom of it and tearing it up totally. And Denny Christofferson, who became a good ally and a friend of mine with the meadow issues there, I called him right away, and he says, well, we have to do it, Mike. It's something, we have to protect the well that we're planning to put up there. So they ripped out 4 to 5 feet of the lower basin there and pushed it up by the well site to protect that. But he did promise me that he would return it to its natural state as best he could, and I believed him. He then encouraged my input on that, and together we talked about different things, and he subsequently had it raked and seeded, and they have actually put straw bales. They came and they spread it all the way across there, protected from the sun so that they would germinate well. And they spent quite a bit of money restoring it to the best they could with the grasses. And then he gave me permission, because I am a naturalist in some ways. I like to garden, and I like wildflowers, and I like plants, and so he gave me permission to move out into the meadow, into city property in a certain degree, and to plant wildflowers and to plant trees, which I started doing. And I also have bluebird houses that nest every year. I had 3 batches in 1 year from the same house, We planted a lot of trees, and my immediate neighbor, now Chris and Andrea Carpenter, they've started planting trees and have wildflowers, and it's very pretty along there now. And it will get even prettier because of the thousands of seeds that I keep throwing out there that I steal from our golf course. And we're trying to repopulate some of the native species that would normally grow there. I had an original script that began with describing all of the different negatives of activity that disc golf or other types of activities, not just disc golf, would probably impose on a meadow of that type. And I got them from a lot of other communities that had experience with disc golf. But I'm not going to get into talking about all of them, but I'm just going to list a bunch of them, and then I'm going to move to, I think, a more important topic. But severe environmental damage is one, security issues, littering and alcohol use, lack of restroom access, insurance liability, overuse of parking problems, maintenance responsibilities, protection from vandals, rules enforcement, and cost. It can't be zero cost, and we all know that, I think, and I apologize to you, Joe, and I think that there will always be embedded costs in maintaining anything, and we found out just by having the pavilion that is at the north end now, that just the costs of maintaining that have already almost superseded the budget they have just to mow around the 2 acres there. And they've, I think, decided not to even mow the full 2 acres. I'm not positive on that. But and when I was talking to Mike O'Keefe yesterday, too, we talked about stereotyping. And that's the last thing I want to do, is to put disc golfers into a stereotypical thing and say that all of these things will come true because disc golfers are bad people with the environment. That's not true. And just as I don't want to stereotype them, I would also appreciate if people didn't just consider me a NIMBY, if you all heard of that one, not in my backyard. And because that's not what I'm doing this for. It's not just because they're planting it in the backyard, because I play disc golf too. In fact, I called my wife when I heard about this, and I started describing it to her, and she says, "Oh, good, Mike, good, we're going to get disc golf. She loves playing it." And I said, no, we don't want it here. It's not appropriate, and there's other reasons. So it's my understanding that the real kicker is that the city of Hudson cannot allow disc golf at this site, and here's why. In 2005, Ryan, or the Topaz LLC, Ryan Realty, entered in an agreement with the city of Hudson that when they dissolved their association, Topaz did, they deeded the property over to the city with certain conditions. Pay their back taxes, for one. Also, build a pavilion. And at the same time, the city said, well, if we take the property, we're going to put a pumping station up there. So into the contract, into the agreement, went all these conditions. And it allowed then the city to build the pumping station, or the well house, to put a building there, to pave the road, to put in up to 3 parking spaces for the pavilion and complete the pavilion. And that was signed and agreed to in 2005. And I'm going to read to you a paragraph from the Exhibit A, which is the, I already lost my pages. The City of Hudson will, this is part of, I'll read the top of it, Exhibit A of additional terms of purchase agreement for outlot number 1 in Hudson Meadows, City of Hudson, St. Croix County. The City of Hudson will maintain the proposed well house, municipal water supply production building, picnic pavilion, parking spaces, and driveway. The remainder of said outlet 1 shall be maintained by the City of Hudson as a natural open space. No talk about development of the open space. Natural open space. That's the understanding that all of us move there for. That's what this agreement says. And I have had a number of people tell me that, including Denny Christofferson, Jim Fry, who was the interim utilities director for a while, and Tim Caruso, who reaffirmed that when he took over too. Secondly, in July, at a city council meeting, then Mayor Knutson recommended, when they were discussing the naming the park. They were talking about what are we going to do with the park, but let's give it a name. And that was one of the things that came up with there. But he also recommended then that that it also remain as a separate, open, natural area. And it reads, he recommended to develop the southerly 10 acres of Outlet 1 of Hudson Meadows as a park with not more than 2 acres around the pavilion to be mowed and leaving the rest in a natural state. In a natural state. Doesn't say recreational open space, and it doesn't say anything but natural. And upon completion, the city should accept the responsibility for maintenance of the pavilion, driveway, parking spaces, and ask the park board for recommendation on naming the park. Okay? Those to me are pretty straightforward. So in conclusion, I believe that the spirit and even the clear documentation of all the prior negotiations, staff promises, and city actions has been to keep the now-named Meadows Park as it is, undeveloped, for anyone to enjoy without the distractions of disc golf, walking trails, non-natural structures, etc. And thanks to Mary Jacob, who's here, we wouldn't have known about this meeting. And I also want to thank Mr. Rademacher and Mr. Zulli for allowing us to be here tonight too. And I also have copies of the letter. I don't know if it has been received by the city yet from Topaz. Bill Ryan himself personally signed it. And I have a copy of that I'll leave here tonight in case some of you don't have that. And I've gotten several supporting emails I have here from residents that couldn't be here, as well as we have a fairly large, I think, representation here from our community, and I would be more than happy to turn the mic over to any one of those now that wanted to speak. But thank you for your time, and good luck.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on this issue?
Other than opposing it, no.
Okay. Mary?
Hello, Mary Yakub, 154 Dunbury Pass. I am the alderperson for District 2, and Hudson Meadows is one of the neighborhoods I represent. I, too, am opposed to seeing a park go into Hudson Meadows. Pretty much echoing everything Mike said. He took almost every word out of my mouth, maybe in a longer format, but that's okay. But it is meant to be a passive park. There's a reason why there's nothing in there right now. And that's because there's not supposed to be anything in there right now. When we agreed to put this park together, and when I spoke to neighbors in that neighborhood, there was many other various items people wanted to see in that park, and my response to them was, this is supposed to be a passive park. It's going to have we're going to put exactly what's in that agreement, and that's what's in the park now. As far as considering, he's talking about teams coming in, well, there's going to be 3 paved parking spots. So we have to consider, where would people park? Where would people use the lavatory? Maybe 2, fine. Where would people use the lavatory? There's a lot of other things to consider besides the fact that, yes, disc golf is a quieter game, but still not quiet enough for a passive park. So I am honored to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there was an attempt to put it in White Camp Park. I think there's been an attempt to put it in Prospect Park. Those have both been denied. I believe it used to be at Willow River State Park, and I believe their contract wasn't renewed for various reasons. I think you all should think about the reasons why that contract wasn't renewed. And I think you should consider that there's plenty of other areas outside of the city of Hudson where a disc golf course could be placed, and I don't think it should be placed in any park in the city of Hudson. Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience like to speak at this time? Anyone? Okay.
I'm Andrea Carpenter. I live on 47 Canary Way, and my house backs up to the Hudson Meadow. The reason my husband and I and most of our other neighbors built was for that reason, to look at undeveloped space, to look at the wildlife. There's been much more wildlife back there recently. Deer, turkey, pheasants have recently come back there. And that means a lot because there isn't a lot of open space within Hudson and outside our backyard. I mean, this is literally our backyard. So it is a concern. Traffic's a concern. There's tons of children in our neighborhood that backs up, that comes right down a cul-de-sac. So traffic is an issue. I don't know if any traffic studies have been done, but that would be a huge consideration and concern. The people going back there, you know, it's hard. I mean, kids do play back there now. So, you know, who's going to monitor the people going back there? I realize that, you know, many different types of people play disc golf, and that's great, but it still has to be monitored. It still has to be, we've had other instances in our neighborhood where we've had increased police presence, and we don't need the additional traffic. That's not the area for it.
Anyone else at this time like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Kendra Still, 46 Robin Lane. I am one of your neighbors. I don't live down there in Canary Way, but I agree wholeheartedly with everything Mike said and what Mary said. And I am the one that kind of pushed to have this park come about. And with everything that Mike said, going back over the history. We bought our lot in October of 2005. When we came to our closing in April of 2006, we were told, you no longer have a homeowners association. That area that we were promised was going to be the common space for the entire development has now become city property, and it's going to be taken over by the city, and you no longer have a common space for your development, which we knew nothing of until we got to our closing. So long story short, I pushed and pushed and pushed to have something done down at that area, because that was supposed to be the place for our children to play. Right now there's nowhere for them to go except for in the street, because that common space was taken away from us. So we have the pavilion, we have the 2 acres that's mowed. My kids go down there, they throw the ball around. It's a useful space, but we also have the nature, the natural area. We don't expect a private park. We don't expect the city to provide us with a private park. We just expect the city to uphold the agreement that Mike has documented, that when the land was taken over by the city, it should be upheld. I think an agreement is an agreement. So we'd like to keep it as a natural area.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else at this time like to comment? Anyone? Okay, is there any questions from the board at this time for Joe? Yeah, Mike? I call you Mike, Randy, that's Mike. Joe, I have one question. Maybe you could explain as to why your contract with the state park was not renewed, or why
Well,
you're looking for a new home.
Yeah, it was, the person who put it in, the original park manager who who allowed the course to go in back in 1998 was very enthusiastic when I showed her what we were planning. And she said, this seems like a really fantastic addition to the park. We think it'll bring a lot of new people to the park. She was very excited. Within about 6 months of the course being installed in July of 1998, she left, though, for some reason. I can't really remember why. And then the current park manager started, which would have been approximately 1999. And he really never really liked disc golf, and we talked to him quite a bit about it, but he was just kind of negative about it right from the beginning. And I don't think he ever could really look at it with an open mind. And at a certain point in 2009, he was walking through the park with a couple of children and heard a disc golfer swear. And we missed a putt or something, which happens. It happens in regular golf, and occasionally will happen in disc golf. I would say it's not common, but it does happen. And when he heard this person swear, he said, that's it, I'm pulling it, it's out of here. And that was what he told me he had decided was the reason for it, was that one instance. And and he had the power to do that, and he wasn't open to negotiation or talking to us, he just decided to pull it. So it was due to one person swearing that really ticked him off, and that was that. he was going to pull it. And so that's how it happened. And
Okay. Mary, you want to make a comment?
Yes, all right. I have a document here from that that explains why they were released from they were released of their contract, and it says the picnic area, playground, and nature trail are all adjacent to the disc golf course, and there have been complaints and management problems arising from that close proximity. The course has been the site of numerous citations for littering, dogs off leash, underage drinking, and illegal drug use. Signs have been vandalized and trees damaged. The park does not have sufficient staff or resources to manage a disc golf course. When Meadows Park was put in place, it almost didn't pass because we were concerned about resources to even mow and change garbage over there. So now we have to be concerned about resources to maintain a disc golf course in an area that we're an area of the city's budget that we're pretty much rationing on right now. Something to consider. So I don't think it was just a minor swear. I'm sorry to argue what your statement is, but it's here in print, so I'm going to go with this. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions for Joe at this time? Okay, is there a motion or of any type that anybody would like to entertain?
I have a question.
Okay.
Then point 5 in this Exhibit A talks about natural open space, and what's the definition? Have we defined that as a city as to what that means?
You asking me? I'm not sure. I do know that that area that is in, mentioned as the course, the open space is basically designed and constructed for stormwater. It's more of a stormwater area, and I just want to be careful. I know Mike has planted trees and flowers, and that's all good, but just so everyone knows that that is a stormwater pond, and that's what it should be maintained as. And I think the wildflowers and, you know, everything to attract birds and things, but just so you know, if we ever would have to go in there and maintain it for any reason or do work like that, that, you know, that's what it is for, as a stormwater pond, so.
But as far as having a city's if this comes up anywhere else with this term natural open space, we don't have it.
I'm not sure exactly, you know, how to define that.
Okay.
It's really more passive or non-passive is kind of how we've gone about things, you know. Is disc golf a passive sport? Most people say yes, but depends on what we want to, what we, being the city of Hudson, want to do with the park. And I think it's clear the residents here believe that it should be untouched outside of a mowed area that they've agreed to when they sold it or transferred ownership to the city.
Are we currently mowing 2 acres out there, Tom?
Not 2 acres. They mowed a little last time, they mowed a little more than they were supposed to, but it's just around around the pavilion and the driveway in and out of the area, so.
Acre maybe?
I would say maybe an acre has been mowed.
I can add one comment to her question about the open space. I looked up some of those definitions, and they may not apply. Maybe Hudson does not have a definition per se, but there are several types of park space around the country, and some are declared just plain open space, and some are called natural open space, and then there's a recreational open space. And from my interpretation is the natural open space is the passive one, like the Niagara Falls. You're not going to put anything else there, that's for sure. But open space could be defined as recreational at times, or it could be defined as natural open space too. So there's kind of an override the open space, which is non-developed, non-residential parkland. And many different parks have combinations of those, as you'll see. They got walking trails, they got ballparks, and they have places where you can just go picnic. They have fishing ponds and lakes and things like that. But basically, when this was termed natural open space, it really meets all the criteria for passivity, as far as I'm concerned.
Did that answer your question a little bit?
Did, thanks.
Okay. Mike, do you have
He
any?
has another comment.
Oh, Joe, yeah?
All right, thanks. I was thinking, obviously I'm outnumbered about 20 to 1 here, but there are obviously so many people that would love to have a disc golf course in Hudson, and they're obviously not here tonight. But I would say this, before you take action, I guess I would recommend having the city attorney look at those documents and make a decision on whether, what does it really say? I mean, you're taking Mike's legal opinion on this, I guess, as to what an open space is and what those documents show. So I guess what I would say is just show it to the attorney and the city attorney and have him look at it and see whether or not what he thinks. If there is a resource like this that everybody in the city of Hudson can enjoy rather than just the residents who live right next or are lucky enough to live right next to it, I think it should be something that should be shared with other city residents. If it's a city park, I don't know why it shouldn't be used by people like me who doesn't happen to live right next to it. So I guess that's my comment.
Thank you. Is there any other questions at this time amongst the board members? Randy? Okay, I'll ask again, is there a motion of any type for this? To recommend approval to the council or recommend denial to the council of the disc golf proposal?
I'd make a motion that we would deny this proposal at this time, given the standing agreement that I read here, that it should be left as a natural park, natural state. And with the concerns raised, I would move to deny.
There's a motion to deny. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. No, we have a motion on the table to deny. Is there any further discussion?
I think he made a good point about having Catherine review the agreement and make sure that if this comes up in the future, we have a clear understanding about what this means, what can happen there, what shouldn't happen there, because it is a public park. And I appreciate neighbors and having concern about what goes in there, but I think it would be in the city's best interest to have Catherine review this and help us in the future.
Any other comments or
Just
suggestions?
a comment, not to change the motion, but to clarify just what is meant here sometimes by mowing not more than 2 acres. That doesn't mean you'd have to mow one particular area 2 acres. Does that mean we could mow paths and trails through the park to constitute 2 acres? In my opinion, it does. So I
technically,
guess
yes,
that's
that's
just one
correct.
thing I would throw out as a possibility, that there is a park there that we'd like others to probably use too, and I guess I would like to see it developed some way that it's maybe more usable.
I can speak to that directly, and both of those are, one, it requires that the mowing be right around the pavilion. It must be adjacent to the pavilion. That's directly in the statement there. And the trails is also the water utilities. Before they, I have a letter from Tim Caruso, and he was president of Water Utilities, who indicated that no trails were included in this agreement. No trails. And I have copies of that. I'm going to give the chair copies of the things that I have, and hopefully you have copies. Tom, you have them, I think, of the agreement, right?
Yep, I have those.
Yep.
Not the one that you mentioned from the original from Mr. Ryan.
Oh, you don't have that?
Just this Exhibit A is what I have.
Yeah, the rest of it is just the legal sale form, like a bill of sale.
Thank you. We do have a motion on the table, and I do want to finish with that if we can. So is there any further discussion amongst the commission members on the motion at hand to deny the request? Okay, hearing none, I'll like to call for a vote. All in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion to deny passes. And I guess I will ask, throw out to Mary and the residents here, like was brought up, it is a public park. If you do have some ideas at all on what you would like to see there, maybe it is nothing. It'd be nice if you could share that with Mary or one of us up here at some point, and what you would like to see at that park, because it is obviously a new park for the city, and we are kind of trying to figure out what to do with it, if anything. So we appreciate your input on that. All right, thank you.
One thing, can I add one thing?
Sure.
Also is that as we legally get this park in our system, we need to update our park comp plan. And with that, we have to designate what this park is gonna be used for. So at that point, we better specify that, clearly state that, the things that we discussed tonight as far as open space, and if this park is just gonna be exactly what it was intended for in the agreement.
Can you have Catherine give us a legal opinion as to that agreement, so it's on the record?
Yeah, and that's the whole purpose of, getting this legally as a city park. And I think it's, like it's been brought up, it is, if it is a city park, it should be able to be used by the entire city residents. So that's my opinion, so.
Okay, let's move on to item 4, which is project update, parks projects. Tom? Do you have?
I just got a minute.
Minutes?
We're trying to do some work up in the Burkmost Park lookout areas. The weeds and the trees have just been growing crazy this year, so we've been up there trimming this last week. We've had a lot of reservations, incredible amount of reservations in all of the parks, White Camp, Prospect Park. I think the mowing's been going very good. We've been getting mostly compliments on the mowing, and
Burton Field looks as good as I've seen it in years.
I think they're doing a good job.
Example.
So other than that, we did get approval for the bathhouse parking lot to get milled and overlaid this year. So that'll be done this year. The engineering firm is working on just some final specs for the walking trail behind the bathhouse. We're gonna wait till after Labor Day to get that, hopefully we can get that done this fall.
Are we tying in something to fix the waterfall
we're gonna-
erosion issue as part of that, or not?
Yeah, we're gonna be putting some drains across, with drain tile down to a main catch
Oh,
basin,
okay.
and get that
Okay.
taken care of, hopefully get some of the water issues resolved. The boat launch is open. I heard the water's coming back up, but we did have it open last weekend. The lower part of the seawall, because of the, being underwater all summer, the grass is dead. It's just kind of stinks.
Mucky black.
So we're gonna, hopefully, if the water goes down by September 1st, we'll try to see if it's dry enough to get it tilled and reseeded. Otherwise, we may have to wait till next spring to get that taken care of.
Now, you received some bids for the stairs to the mooring units, or have you opened those, or we?
Unfortunately, the bids were gonna be opened yesterday. We did not receive any bids. They were sent out to 4 companies. And I tried to call those companies today, and I couldn't get a hold of anybody to see the reason why. Hopefully they got them, so once I find out the reason why they didn't bid on them, we'll have to make a decision then to either rebid or take it from there. So
Okay.
we did not receive any bids, so
Interesting, okay.
that was interesting.
How'd the camping go during the,
Canoe
The
trip?
paddle down the St. Croix River went very well. At first they said that we're supposed to get 100 or 150 campers. Ended up to be about 7. So they said it was the best location that they had the entire trip. They were very accommodated. We, asked if they needed anything. I think they felt very at home, and they really liked Hudson.
great.
So I'm glad that went well.
Good.
So now Tom asked us to scoot. Does anybody else have any questions for him quick?
Shrubs look good removed on Buckeye, too.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Thank you for letting me do that. Thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna do something a little unusual here, because We have a couple other comments I think that people would like to make, so.
Yeah,
sir-
and I apologize. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Ryan Cochran at 59 Canary Way. I was the first house in 2005 that was not a model with my backyard in the meadow. I'd be happy to share pictures of what it actually looked like in its original natural state. You know, right now to me it's quite an eyesore, even what the city has done developing to put the pump house in. There's washed out culverts that have gone for 2 or 3 years now unrepaired. There's silt fences left over. What was once a waterfowl area with ducks is now just a marshy swamp. So just some things to think about as we're looking at budgets to maintain. I don't think there's even any grass there to cut right now around the pavilion. So if we're gonna spend some money, let's figure out how to make it look like it was.
So basically, there's some unfinished, and I think I
Yeah.
noticed that when I was up there last time too, is that there's unfinished work that the water department
Yeah,
did, and we need to have them go fix that.
It's on the schedule.
Okay.
it's on schedule.
This is on the schedule.
I just wanted some of these things to be in the notes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Maybe
Thank you.
before we have a winter meeting, we can convene out there sometime and just maybe walk a little bit.
Okay. We need to do some upcoming, or item 5 is other business for upcoming agenda items. I know I'd like to see on the next agenda, we need to get Burton Field back on the
Yeah.
radar. So we can go with the developing of that park that we talked about, new plans and so forth. So if we put Burton Field on the agenda, requesting bids for landscape, for a park plan is what we need to do next, if I remember right. Is that correct?
Right.
Remember the same thing? Yes, see lots of heads nodding, so let's do that. Liz, anybody else? Randy?
We had talked about implementing some kind of a preference system for reservations for Hudson residents as in 2012. We should probably talk about if we've taken any action on that or what that model could look like
Okay,
for the next park reservation season.
okay. For shelters and,
I think that's what we had
Pavilions
talked
and-
about was
Yep.
shelters
Okay.
and pavilions and again, if it's possible to do that and what that system would look like.
okay. Anybody else? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.